Hello Stampers, my name is Linda Bettinger and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. And today I'd like to show you how I made this card. This card came out of messing around with the new paste, embossing paste that Stampin' Up! Has, and the fact that I had already pre-cut a whole bunch, and I don't remember why I did this, but I have a whole bunch of these little purple butterflies already cut out. And so I was trying to find a way to use them, and that all came together with the daisy punch, and this is what I came up with. Anyway, we'll have a little play with the embossing paste today, and you'll get to see a little bit about how that works. So let me tell you what you need to make this card. What you need is you need a piece of, I used vanilla, very vanilla, 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. Then I have a layering piece, 5 1/4 by 4. And then I have a piece, and this is Pear Pizzazz. Then I have a piece in Crumb Cake that is 3.7 or 3 3/4 by 5. Then you will need a piece of scrap for your daisies, and I use So Saffron. Then you need a piece of scrap of Wisteria Wonder, or whatever color you're going to make your butterfly. Then a piece of Very Vanilla for your greeting. Now I used the punch for from the daisy bundle, the daisy punch. Then I used from Seasonal Greetings, I just got this set, and I used this piece, which is a branch. You can hardly see it on this one. We're going to make it a little bit more prominent going forward. So I used that branch. This looks like it's going to be lots of fun to play with. There's all kinds of things on here, leaves and snowflakes and flowers. This interesting border. That might be very interesting to make, for another video. This Adirondack chair, there's just all kinds of things on here, and that'll be fun to have a play with as we go forward. But for today, I'm using just the branches. Let's see, and then I used the stitch framelit oval for the sentiment. So let's just get started here, and I think what I'm going to start with is this background. This is using this new embossing paste from Stampin' Up, and I've ordered it and just now beginning to play with it, and I'm kind of having some fun with it. And I used the brick pattern. Let me show you also the items that come with the masks to create these different images. This one is a giant medallion, and I think that would be kind of fun, you know, along the edge or down the center of a card, or along one edge of a card using the paste. I think that's going to be fun to play with. Then there's this star pattern, and I've seen that used by a couple people. And then there's these clouds, and I've seen those put on a few different cards, and I've seen people mix glitter in the paste and give those clouds a really sparkly kind of look. And so there's a lot of things that I think we can do with that. For today, what I'm going to use is this brick pattern, because I thought it might be kind of fun to show against a brick some flowers up against it. And this particular thing was inspired by the fact that I had these pieces, and also I'd seen a photograph where there was one flower, and the flower was here and the butterfly had landed on it, and that's kind of been in my head to do something with. So that's what we're going to do here. So let me first grab some scratch paper here, and I'm going to use a Pierce and silicone mat to do the mixing of this, and we are going to start by working on this piece of Crumb Cake. And what I'm going to do, I've seen this done a couple different times by people. This is a repositioning tape, and I'm going to put a little bit of repositioning tape on the back of this card, and I'm going to lay it down. Let's see. I think I want the inches side of this to show. So I'm going to take this piece of scratch paper and turn it this way. And I'm going to place this card along some of the grid lines so I know I've got it sitting on here straight. Then I'm going to take this brick pattern and lay it over the top, and I'd like for my bricks to be straight on here, and I'm going to secure that in place with a little piece of washi tape. You can use washi tape, you can use Scotch tape, you can use just about anything. Yeah, I just need it so that it doesn't move around. Then there's a couple of things that I've learned about the embossing paste, and the first is that you need water nearby, because one of the things that's important, because this paste dries rather quickly, and I've got two tools. Stampin' Up! Sells a couple of little tools that you can use in using this paste, is that your tools, your mat, your stencil, everything you're going to use needs to be cleaned up as soon as possible after you've used it, because once the paste dries, it's a little harder to get off. And I'd encourage you to, when you get your bottle of paste, underneath the label here is some very specific instructions, and that you go ahead and read those so that you know exactly what you're doing when you use the paste. The other thing I would say is important is open your paste, get out what you're going to work with, and then put your lid on your paste right away, because it does dry. And so you want to be able to have that so that it's in good shape for next time. What I have done is taken, I use these plastic shoe boxes a lot in my craft room, and I've got, I don't know, 5/8 of an inch of water in there, and I'll be using that to clean off my tools and put my mat when I'm done. And I'm going to use the silicone mat here to mix up my paste. So let's start straight away with getting, and the paste looks like, it looks almost whipped. And you don't need an awful lot of it, and I'm not going to cover all of my card. So I'm going to take a dollop like that and put it on my mat. You can always add more, but if you color it, it's a little challenging necessarily to match the color. Now, for the brick pattern on here, what I'm going to use is some Cajun Craze. This is an ink re-inker, and I'm just going to put, like, I think you can see that, yeah. I'm going to put one healthy drop on there, and then I'm going to use this palette knife to mix that up and let's see, that looks a little light to me. I'm trying to achieve a brick color, so I'm going to add a second drop of ink on there. So you can see this whole process uses not very much product. There we go. Now I'm getting something that looks more like a brick or a brick color. And so what I'm going to do is, like this one for getting it out and mixing the color, and then this tool for actually applying it. And this is a lot like frosting a cake. So I am going to take some, and I am going to just start to put it on my card, and draw across the top of this piece here, and you can see how it fills in and how I really don't need, in fact I have more on this card than I probably need, to come across the card. And if you look at this pattern, I left this little lower end here uncovered and the top end, and I think I'm going to do that same sort of scheme. So you just want to make sure that you get your paste in the areas that you want to have it, and it's fine if it's only partially in a couple places. It kind of looks like a wall in nature that's kind of been neglected. So I'm going to add those pieces in and get the coverage that I want on those bricks. And there we go. I think the other thing that's good to have handy is a little bit of paper towel. So I'm going to go ahead and clean my tools straight away here. I'm going to, I hate to waste that paste. Let's see if I have another piece cut of the brown. I do. Maybe I can quickly, because this is going to need to dry just a bit, to move that out of the way and put a little repositioning tape on the back of this one and set it down here and bring this back down and see if I can't use this remaining paste here and not waste it. And you can see it's already starting to dry there. So I can at least get the beginning of it done here. So I'm going to put my silicone mat in the water and my tools, and I'm also going to put my masking piece. I'll finish this piece a little later, so then I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to stick this masking piece also in the water so it'll be easy to clean up in the end. Okay, so I'm going to move this out of the way, and while we're waiting for this piece to dry, and I do have an overhead fan on, probably not a good idea when you're working with this, it'll help this dry, but what it did was dried out the paste probably a little bit faster than it might ordinarily. And the other thing that I thought was curious about this paste, in the sample card, I was a little concerned because I thought it might crack if it's bent, and it really is very pliable once it's dried. It's almost, I don't want to say rubbery, but it definitely does not crack or do anything like that. So we have this piece done, and we'll set that aside to dry, and we can move on to putting together some of the other pieces of our card. So we have our base here, and we'll go ahead and get that folded and burnished and ready to go. And then I think we can go ahead and just adhere this piece right on top, and I'm just going to use snail for that. So okay, then we can go along to making the daisies. And so what I've done is I've taken a piece of So Saffron, and I really think I just cut 2 daisies to do this particular design. So I've got 2 daisies, and you notice I'm not stamping the design on here. And I did that deliberately because I wanted to make something that looks a little bit more like a Black-Eyed Susan. and I have black-eyed Susans in my garden, and they really don't have anything to them except a little bit of a brown color. So let me move that aside, and my daisy went haywire. There it is. Okay, so now what we need is our snips, because what we're going to do is I cut one of these flowers in half, and then I think I cut one leg off so that I could glue these two together to get this kind of half flower here. So I'm going to use some Tombow on this, put a little bit of Tombow down, and put these two flowers together so that the petals are falling between one another. Now I'll set that one aside and make sure that that is sitting on there the way I want it. There we go. Now so I have one kind of thing left over here, and so for this one I think I did exactly the same thing, cut across, and then I cut one of these flowers off. Then I only needed two from this other half, because what I did was the same thing, put a little Tombow on the petals here, and then connected the two petals together so that they create this. The look is like black-eyed Susans or echinacea, and echinacea is a kind of flower that droops away from the center, and so this is very realistic to what they look like. Then I had these four little pieces left, and I went ahead and again put a little bit of Tombow on here and attach these two to this particular one. So one petal here and the last petal along the edge, and there are the three flowers that we need for the front of our card. And I'll set that along to let the Tombow do its thing. Now what we need is, in our little piece of scrap of Very Vanilla, I have taken from the Daisy Delight stamp set the two centers, the plain center and the textured center. And I think you can see that. There's the side that has the texture, and then this is a solid piece. And what I did was I used soft suede ink, and this is to make the little centers of the flowers here. In fact, I think I put one on the inside. I did, so I'll need another daisy. So I put stamped, let's see, what happened to my scratch paper? Down here. Okay. Let me move things out of the way a little bit here. I stamped off once and then stamped on here, and it looks like I need 4 of those. And then went back over the more full strength with the textured side. So that's what I have at this point. Now, I went along here and cut them out with my 1/2-inch punch to get 4 centers out. Okay, so I have 4 centers. Close that ink up for the moment. And so this is what I have. Now, you'll notice that on the card here, the example, they're not complete circles, and that's very typical of the way that flower looks in real life. It's more of a mounded oval. And so what I'm going to do is just give a kind of a flatter bottom here to these little circles and round up the edges so that I am creating these little half mound centers. So I'm going to do that to all of these. Okay. Now, to add a little bit of realism, I have an early espresso marker here, and what I'm going to do is just add some little dots to the top of this little center here. Again, it adds to the realism of this flower and what it looks like in real life. All of my little, some people call them Rudbeckia daisies, and some people call them black-eyed Susans. All of mine are in bloom all over my yard right now. So no, I know exactly what they look like. So I add my dots to the last of these. And there's a reason I'm adding the color to this before I put it any further in place, and I'll show you what we're going to do to add to the realism. So now I've got my 3 flowers here, and actually I decided I really did need 1 more. So I'm going to bring back my daisy punch so that I have decoration for the inside and at least get half a flower. And I think that's one with 5 petals. So I'm going to cut that one like that. Add my dab of Tombow and put this one in place and let that dry while we're working on the rest of them. So that one is for the inside, and I'm going to set one of those aside for that. Now on these, what we're going to do is add a little bit of Tombow to the top. Oh, that's a lot of Tombow. So I'm going to just wipe some of that glue on the back of another of these. I'm going to put this one in place, and if you put it in place so that it covers most of the places that you cut, you end up having a piece that's pretty realistic for your flower. Okay, so there's one. There's a second one. This one might be a little bit big for this. We'll just see if I put it in place what it looks like. Oh, that looks very realistic. So I'm going to add just a dab of Tombow to the back of this. And put it in place. Now, my last one for the inside, we'll do the same. And there we go. All right. Now, I have pre-cut my stem, and here it is from the seasonal layers. And this, on this card, one of the things that I noticed here was that this is almost too upright. So my plan on this one is to have it come more, instead of from the bottom straight up, I'm going to have it come from the corner and up, so I get it a little bit more of an angle. There'll still be plenty of room for my butterfly and plenty of room for my sentiment. And I have two choices here. We can put one of the flowers here. We can put one here and one here. Well, what we can do is trim away a little bit of that, because I think I want this flower down a little bit so there's plenty of room for the butterfly. And I think I like that configuration because it leaves a little bit of the stem to be seen, in which case this little piece of stem down here at the bottom needs to be trimmed away so that it looks like it wasn't ever there. So I'm just going to trim that away, and I'm trying not to leave a nub. There we go. Okay, so if that comes up from there, let me dry fit this one more time. So like this, there we go. I think that looks pretty good. Then what I did on the butterfly, and I have cut here a pink one and a purple one. And maybe on this one we'll use the pink one. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the stylus from my scoreboard, and I am going to, let's see, let me grab another silicone mat here. I am going to just put, let me take a little ruler here, a ruler, and I'm going to put it diagonally along the body of the butterfly here. I'm not going to put it straight down the middle, but tilt it so that it is a little bit off center, and that allows me to have the wings going so that you can see both sets of wings. And it just makes it easier, I found, to fold the butterfly if you score this piece first. And then you can score your butterfly, you can fold your butterfly along that score line. Use my bone folder here. It's a very narrow piece, so it doesn't necessarily want to fold. And there you have your little butterfly with its wings going in both directions. And we can set it to be on top of this flower. So now I think we need to start putting pieces together on our piece of card here. And this piece of card is curled a little with all of that manipulating and the embossing paste. So I'm going to use my bone folder here to just straighten it a little bit. And it can handle it. The bricks don't, like I said, it doesn't crack. So I'm going to start putting these things in place, and I'm going to use a little bit of Tombow, and I'm going to raise the flowers on dimensionals. From the corner and coming out a bit on the brick wall. Going to put that down. And Tombow and other things do stick pretty easily to this embossed paste. I did not have any trouble with that. And you can see we've been working for a few minutes, but that's nice and dry and ready to go. Okay, so now I'm going to use some dimensionals, and I do want to grab one package. I don't know if you've seen these or not, but these are the new mini dimensionals, and they are going to work beautifully on this project. I can fit pretty much a full dimensional on the back of the flowers here. And then I do want to secure those petals though. And so I'm going to coax the first one out of here, and I'm going to put these minis on the petals here to hold them in place. They're just really kind of fun. All of that, and I'll use the bones on these too, but you can go ahead and these fit nicely in tight spots. Oh, you know, before I stick that down, let me do one more thing. One of the things, again, for the realism is you'll notice on this one there are some little brown bits coming down the flowers, and I meant to do this a little earlier, but I'm using my aqua painter here, getting just a little bit of liquid and going from the top of the flower, and because this is water-based ink, some of that color comes down on the petals, and if it doesn't, then you'll use a little bit of the ink here just to get some little wisps of that brown on these petals. And in real life, that's exactly what they look like. They have little wisps of brown. Some of them are clearer and some of them have more wisps of the brown, but that's very classic for the way they look. So I can add that detail on these. Some of them have really quite dark stripes on them, and others just have a hint of color. But I thought that looked very realistic for the way these flowers appear in real life. So there we go. And while I have them, before I put that last one on, I'm going to use my Wink of Stella, and I did use my Wink of Stella on all of the flower centers and then the petals. Just to add a little bit of sparkle to the card. As long as I'm at it, I'll do this one as well. And that one needs just a little bit of color on those leaves as well. Okay, there we go. All right, now I can put this last one in place. I'm going to set it right there. Gives kind of a three-dimensional look. And then we're going to add our butterfly. And what I did was I added a tiny bit of Tombow right down the fold that we made inside the butterfly and held that together for a second. Then I kind of bent this wing back so that I got that 3D feature. Then I added a little bit of Tombow on the back side of the butterfly, and I put that in place on my flower. Now on this one I did add a little rhinestone, but I'll have to say I'm not crazy about it. And I think these faceted gems might actually work better. So I am going to take one of these faceted gems, the smallest of them, and let's see my piercer. See if that's too big. I think it looks kind of interesting. Okay, now that's my story and I'm sticking to it. That's what I'm going to do. All right, so this front panel is now completely, well, no, other than the sentiment, but I think we can go ahead and put this in place. And I'm going to use Tombow on this because it's got so much dimension on the front that I want to make sure I can get it in place and wiggle it around and have the time to do that. So I'm now going to center this piece on my card front. And get that moved around till I'm happy with where it's sitting, and I think that looks just fine. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is use my scrap of Very Vanilla, and I am going to add a greeting in the soft suede. And this greeting, you can use any one you'd like. This is one of my favorites. It's from a retired set. This is from Wetlands. I was so disappointed when Wetlands was retired. I use so many of the greetings because I love the script on this one. It's just so pretty. So I continue to use it. So I'm going to get lots of ink on this, and I'm going to get my birthday greeting set on here, and I'm going to go cut that using my stitched framelit. And what I did was I used one of the ovals from my stitched framelits. This isn't the one. I think I left it at my Big Shot. So I'll do that and I'll be right back. So here I have my greeting. And let's see, I need the ink out for one more thing. So I'll just take this out of here. And that was the, on the stitched framelits, it was the middle one, or the second one up. I guess there's 4, so it's number 2 if you're counting from smallest to largest, and number 3 if you're counting from largest to smallest. So it's the second smallest in the stitched framelits. I just love the way they look. So I'm going to add a couple of dimensionals onto the back of this sentiment. I like the composition of this card much better than I do this one. It somehow seems more balanced on the card front. This is all weighted a little bit too much on this side, and this is spread more evenly across. So that's what we have. Now the last thing to do on this one is to add a sentiment to the inside of the card, and I selected a sentiment from this one, Birthday Blossoms. It says, "A Day All About You." This one has great sentiments. On the inside, you could easily put "A Day About You," "Celebrate You," "Another Happy Birthday." This set is very, very versatile, I think, for that. And so I'm going to put "A Day All About You," and again, I'm going to put that on the inside of the card, and I'm going to do it in soft suede. And so let me get ink all on my sentiment there and get it centered on my card. Okay, so I don't know what happened, my camera turned off. So what I did was I added this "It's a Day All About You" to the inside of the card here for the sentiment, and then we have one last little flower to put in place down here on the bottom. And because that's on the interior, I'm not going to raise that, so I'm going to do that one with glue dots. So I'm going to put a glue dot in the middle of the stamens on this, and on a couple of the petals to help hold the card in place, or the flower in place. And I think 3 is probably enough, and I'm just going to stick that down here on the bottom, and there we have it. There is our project for the day. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's I think always interesting to play with new materials, so today we had the opportunity to do a couple of things. We made a different kind of daisy and used butterfly, and we used the embossing paste. And I'll be back with more on the various uses of the embossing paste, because I have 100 ideas in mind for for what I can do with that. But there we go. So there's the inside, A Day All About You, and the little flower on the inside, one with a pink butterfly and one with a purple butterfly. Thanks so much for stopping by and watching my YouTube channel today. I do appreciate it. And the prize draw for July is 3 packages of Designer Series paper. Decided to just get the paper and show you. This paper is the whole lot of lovely Designer Series paper, and the pictures in the catalog don't do it justice. There's this fruit page. This could either be peaches or oranges, and I think it's different enough that you could probably call it whatever you want. And it has this beautiful blue floral pattern on it. It has these beautiful pink watercolor dots, and you can see on the back sides this different designs that are on this paper, and it has little blue flowers on the back of this, pink floral with a very graphic green, white and green leaves. It's got this stunning kind of peachy colored floral pattern with a very delicious looking stripe on the back, and it's just beautiful paper. So this is one of the packages. This package is the Eclectic, and I never can remember the full name, Designer Eclectic Paper, I think is what it's called. And this one has also florals and interesting things on the back, and some really beautiful graphic kinds of papers in here, and all different kinds of color washes and patterns. Look at this chevron looking pattern with a berry burst color wash on the back, and this gem colored paper with, again, a very interesting looking wash on the back. And this, which is reminiscent of some other papers, but the design is very kind of expressionist, and then another pretty pattern of stripes on the back. Then, of course, the Daisy Delight paper, which I've already made a couple of projects with, and this paper has this beautiful yellow daisy design, this navy or dapper denim, this, let me just pull these out a little bit. This beautiful floral pattern, kind of a pink and peachy daisy pattern. It's just got lots of pretty pieces, and the back sides are just as interesting. Color washes and different floral designs, and it's just beautiful paper. So it is one of each of these Designer Series papers that is the prize draw for the month of July. So all you have to do is put in an order with me. Your name goes into the hat. There's no dollar restriction on this one. Now, to get a gift from me for the month, the order needs to be $25 or more. But for this prize draw, any order that you put in with me puts you in the drawing. And so that's the prize draw for the month of July. And the winner this last month was Carolyn Bernard here in Denver. And Carolyn won 5 ink pad set of the new In Colors. And so I hope you enjoyed this. Kind of fun to play with something new. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon. Bye.